Hi, I'm JD. I'm working with Olds 455 here, and I got my 96 Ford Ranger that I want to build a truck rack, a ladder rack for to support 4x8 sheets of plywood and everything else. These are my horizontal supports that are 1/8 inch thick 1x2s, which for my little 1/4 ton pickup truck will be more than substantial. And I've also got the cross members and vertical supports at 1/8 inch thick as well, the 1x2s. Everything else, my gussets are 3/16, my foot plates are 3/16, and then I'm even going to make a couple of U-shaped supports so that I can make my laterals here removable, so I can pull them out and still get a refrigerator in the back here or whatever. And I also have these here straps, 3/16 of an inch thick, to do a wide V-shaped support for the front end that's going to stick out about 2 feet to keep that from flexing down. We're cutting these down to exactly 49 inches to accommodate a 4x8 sheet of plywood with a 1/2 inch clearance on each end. These are the horizontal supports going the width of the car. We've now got our top frame spot welded together. We want to make sure it's perfectly square. We're using magnetic squares here to hold her, but we want to make absolutely positive by measuring corner to corner. So I've got exactly 119 3/4. Yeah, oh boy, we're out. This is 119 1/4.
So we're up by half. Sure looks like it's moving.
There, we got 119 5/8. Let's check it. Here we got 119 5/8. Is that what we said? Is it perfect? Is that all I just said? 119 5/8? Check it one more time. Perfect. With all our cuts on this 1x2 1/8 inch thick tubing, we have little burrs on there that's going to make things, you know, stick out and not be perfect. So we're just going to grind those edges so everything fits perfectly square. Putting up my second forwardmost lateral support. We measure the distance. That's going to stick out front over the cab, and this is going to go just behind the cab to hold our vertical supports just behind the front of the box. So we have, you know, the maximum distance, and I just, you know, I marked everything on the center here, got magnetic squares in. We're going to get it perfect. Yeah, I am now welding my vertical guides to keep my plywood or whatever my load is from falling off to the sides. Right now I'm putting my backmost vertical supports for the load on using a magnet to hold it in place before I make my welds. I'm going 8 inches from the rear. This isn't really a critical measurement, it's whatever you prefer. I just want a little bit of clearance for when I'm putting my load on there, and it's still in a good position. It's not critical, but just so they're safe. I am welding the 3/16 inch bottom plate that is going to be bolted into the bed of my truck to the 1/4 inch 1x2s. Straightening out, centering, and making sure I'm perfectly vertical for my gussets here to triangulate the leg supports so they don't flex. Giving myself 2 1/8 inches so that after I weld it to this vertical support, I can then bend this down and over to seal this end cap, and the other end of the strap will go down here, creating a support so that this doesn't bend down and hit the cab of my truck. My cabs will be underneath there, and without any vertical supports in the front, this is the only way to support it so it doesn't move and flex downward. Yeah, I'm going to pre-bend this in the vise so that it'll be easier after we get our welds on top. there you have it. That's about the angle. The rest of it will go bend once we're on. Instead of using these 3 pieces where I was going to form a channel like so for the, the next support bar to fit in, like that, to hold it so we can remove them and get a refrigerator in, we decided it would be a lot sturdier if we use some pieces of this here angle iron and then put one of the bottom plates in here. So we'll have a much bigger surface area and it'll be much stronger. Got a lot of grinding to do. Oh boy. I figure I've got to cover all the holes so that water doesn't get in there and sit, right? Using a real thin piece of cardboard as a spacer, I spot welded these angle iron pieces in place to give us just a tiny bit of play for our cross member here, so that once we paint it, it isn't, a little too tight. We'll be able to slide it in there real nice. And then I'm going to drill maybe 2 holes through each end to put a roll pin or a cotter pin through there to lock it in place for, removal. I've welded in, quite tightly my 2 lateral supports. Now my bottom support, we're upside down here, is going to be welded in place here. I have to grind this down a little bit so it'll be perfectly even. And then we'll have a nice slot for our horizontal to fit in there. Okay, day 2 of building my ladder rack for the 96 Ranger. Angle iron here with our bottom supports to hold our cross member, because I want it removable so I can get a refrigerator or something in there. You can see it fits pretty darn good. We're just going to drill a couple of holes to put in some roll pins, or whatever the hell they're called, and hold it solid in place. And we're going to break the welds on this one. We just did a couple of tack welds to hold it square. And once we grind off those tack welds, we're going to put on a couple of angle brackets, well, 1 angle bracket and 1 straight piece to hold this bar in place and make it removable as well. I've marked my center here for my snapper pin, now that I'm finally calling it the right thing. And I'm going to do a center punch to make sure my drill bit doesn't walk before drilling my 5/16 inch hole. Oil, please. Don't want to wear out my brand new drill bits. Good set. Pin fits in here. I drilled it exactly. Oh, perfect fit. Beautiful. One more on the other side. Now I'm gonna weld these end caps on so we don't get water going down our vertical supports. All right, we're now putting on our forward uprights for supporting the whole rack. And because I've got this gas tank protrusion here for the fill, I have to put it in and underneath the cross supports rather than the long ways, width-wise. And because my truck bed's a little uneven, I got to put some spacers in here to try and level it out. I've got one here, and hopefully this is going to work out so I can get at least 3 bolts in it. So I've now got my supports leveled, equaled out at 48.5 inches from the inside. So we're going to weld those to the frame now, and then measure our rear verticals. 41.5 inches between them. So I ran my tape all the way across, cut it in half to put our center mark, and then measure 21 3/4, or 20 3/4, excuse me, to get our 41.5. Now I have three 90-degree magnets holding this upright and perfectly square. So now I'm about to give her a tack weld or a small weld on one side where the magnets aren't in place. And we've got this leg with a solid weld using our framing square. It's perfectly square front to back and side to side. This leg is only tacked because we may need to move it. So we're measuring now to make sure that we are perfectly square triangulated. We got 56.5 inches here and 56.5 inches. We're perfect. We're just putting in our cross brace, and this will be towards the cab of the truck, and putting it just below the my viewpoint, so it's not blocking my view. I'm making sure that we got all those legs square. Now we got our height at exactly 18.5 on the bottom, and I already tapped it, got it perfect. So. In order to make this rack really, really sturdy, we're going to triangulate things in every direction. So we've got our kickers here to keep it from moving this way. We're going to put a couple of kickers down like so, probably out here, and then put a horizontal so that it can't move this way. And we'll put another additional couple of supports off of these legs so that they can't move out. Right now though, the next step is to flip this into the back of my truck and kind of test it, make sure everything's going to work out good. Especially with my truck box, I want to make sure it opens properly even with our kickers. Alright, now we're welding on these end pieces to end cap this pipe for keeping water from infiltrating, and then in tangent with this angle iron piece, we'll then have our support for our removable and horizontal support. All right, mounting on my third leg here. It's going to be towards the rear of the truck. After I already put my cap plate on, that's going to support the horizontal piece. So I'm going to commence the welding when I got this thing straight. Now we're putting in our big kicker for the rear end that'll really triangulate and keep it from flexing. By the heavy load on and hit the brakes hard, this will stop it from leaning forward. I put on my fourth leg. I just did a couple of quick spot welds, and I noticed my leg is a little bit out of square. So I'm tapping her back into square before I do my final weld. That looks pretty good. Got these end pieces on. Now we're just putting in our angle bracket that'll support this piece here. Everything looks straight. We're really happy so far. Our framework is upside down, and this cross member, as you know, we're just putting between these, and this is our bottom support here, 3/16 inch steel. We're going to weld that and then put a triangular gusset on top of it to keep it really sturdy, so that sucker ain't going to go nowhere if I drop a load on it. I'll just put a little tack. Our snap pin fits perfectly. Just do the same on the other side and we're good to go. All right, we're having some difficulties deciding how to put a kicker on here. Because this is going inside of the box, and my toolbox, when it opens up, it is just going to barely clear this edge. So any kicker we put cannot go past this edge. Therefore, we're using a 2.5 inch piece of steel to extend out against this. But this 1x2 obviously cut at an angle versus this 1x2 being straight. We're gonna have a big old, piece overhanging there. So we're just going to cut that off and then put a little piece of steel over top and cap it so no water gets in. We made the unfortunate mistake of putting these supports in before realizing that the truck box was not going to be able to clear them. Because it barely clears here, and the arch of it, gets this. So we gotta knock these out and put a bunch of these triangular gussets in. We'll put in as many as we can in these four corners, and that'll help it. It's not gonna be as good as having these supports, but this thing is pretty rock solid as it is, so I think we'll be okay. We got her on here anyway, getting ready to bolt her down. We just got to measure everything, make sure she's perfectly square, put a couple of spaces underneath the feet so they're perfectly level, since it's not a, perfectly flat level bed. You got the ridges and whatnot. But yeah, then we'll drill our holes and mount her in place. She'll be good to go. I hope that's what it was. Up. This is temporary until I can get it home, and I gotta paint the rack before mounting it permanently. So I'm just putting these bolts in there for now to hold it in place, and take it out later, get some stainless steel bolts, get it all painted up, and get another coat of rhino liner on here before I remount it. This whole thing rocks. It's solid. This ain't going nowhere. Well, it was about $130 or $40 worth of materials, about 40 bucks some pizza for the guys helping me. Thank you for watching Oldsmob 455.